Property Holdings RF Limited, that's Khula Sizwe, for the financial year ending 30th September 2023. I am Thanda Swafugu, the Deputy Chairman of the Board of Khula Sizwe. In terms of the company's MOI, quorum for an annual general meeting of shareholders is 25% of the total voting rights entitled to be exercised. The company secretary has confirmed the 25% requirement has been met and that this meeting is accordingly duly constituted and quorate. This AGM is a vital part of our corporate governance, providing an opportunity for us to reflect on the past year. While we acknowledge that this year's AGM is scheduled later than usual, we wanted to assure you that our governance structure are firmly in place. I would like to start by acknowledging the presence of my fellow board members, management, and our esteemed shareholders. Your dedication and support have been instrumental in driving the success of our company. I note the apologies from the board chair, Mr. Andile Mabizela. Today's proceedings will be conducted by myself, alongside our company secretary, Ms. Lerato Managa, and Khula Sizwe, interim MD, financial manager, Ms. Bateti Matibe. Housekeeping rules. The AGM is being conducted in full electronic format in accordance with Section 63(2)(a) of the Companies Act 2008 as amended and the company's Memorandum of Incorporation. Accordingly, the proceeds of this meeting are being recorded. Your attendance will be captured through our virtual attendance register. In terms of the company's MOI, unless otherwise resolved, voting at this meeting shall proceed by way of a poll. Shareholders can still vote on the proposed resolutions and pose questions during the meeting. Proxy voting closed on the 26th of July, and the votes will be collated in this session. This landmark initiative has been pivotal in advancing strategic objectives and solidifying our commitment to broad-based Black economic empowerment. We will ask you when you want to ask questions to kindly post them in the chat box. Key highlights of the transaction. The transaction overview. As a reminder to shareholders, the company you invested in 2019 originates from a BE transaction sponsored and funded in the main by Barloworld Limited, with the express aim of creating a Black-owned and Black-controlled property company with extensive participation by Black shareholders. In terms of the transaction, Barloworld sold their South African property assets valued at 2.9 billion to Proco, now Khula Sizwe, under the BBBEE code. The transaction support rendered by Barloworld to establish Khula Sizwe included A, the sale of Barloworld properties at a discount of 5% to facilitate the transaction. B, an interest-free loan granted to the Barloworld Management Trust of 199 million to enable the Management Trust to fund a portion of its equity. C, made a free contribution to the Employee Trust of 174 million for the Employee Trust equity. In addition to the above, Barloworld further supported Khula Sizwe via 1, an 8% lease escalation rate in favor of Khula Sizwe, which was ahead of the market-related escalation rates of 7% at the time, creating a revenue return profile higher than the cost of capital, and a 10-year non-terminable lease dispensation, something very rare in the property transactions, where lease terms are much shorter, typically no longer than 5 years. The debt raised from external funders, Nedbank, amounted to 2.2 billion or 80% of total transaction funding. The resultant shareholding structure of Khula Sizwe was 38% shareholding held by the Management Trust, 32% shareholding held by the Employee Trust, 30% shareholding held by the Black Public Scheme. To protect its position, that is to preserve BEE, Barloworld imposed restrictions on the new property company along the following lines during the 15-year employment period. During the first 5 years, from 2019 to 2024, shareholders are prohibited from selling their shares. Between 2024 and 2034, the sale of shares is permitted, provided they are sold to Black people or Black entities. Properties in Khula Sizwe could only be sold with the sanction of Barloworld in the first 10 years of investor value. The lock-in period. In respect of the lock-in period, the 5-year lock-in period was established in order to give time for value to be created for our shareholders following our initial public offering in 2019. The lock-in period will come to an end on the 30th of September 2024, meaning you are allowed to trade your shares or subject to a sale only to Black people or Black entities. That is, only Black people and Black entities may become shareholders in Khula Sizwe. This milestone represents an important moment in our company's journey, reflecting our commitment to value creation for our investors. As communicated in 2019, one of the options available at the end of the lock-in period was to list the company to create value for our shareholders and enable you to trade your shares subject to the discretion of the board. Following extensive independent research conducted to understand the value to be created for Khula Sizwe shareholders at listing, the board has taken a decision not to pursue a listing at this juncture. The research indicates that the current poor market conditions would result in the destruction of value to Khula Sizwe shareholders should the company list. Creating value for the shareholders was and remains one of the key objectives of Khula Sizwe. It is the belief of the board that our shareholders to benefit as much as possible from the full intrinsic value of Khula Sizwe. Careful consideration is required with respect to the listing. That is the most appropriate listing platform and the most appropriate time if we do decide to list. The consideration for the where to list includes investigating alternative trading platforms. As a result, the board and management, together with our corporate advisors, will continue to assess market conditions and liquidity options that will provide a suitable trading platform for our shareholders with the intention of building shareholder value as far as possible. The outcome of this assessment will be announced before the end of the second quarter of 2025, in line with the original intention of allowing tradability from year 6 onwards. As always, our priority remains to deliver sustainable value and foster long-term relationship with our shareholders. To this end, the board will endeavor to find the most suitable trading platform for shareholders. We ask for your patience as we undergo this process and see it to a successful conclusion. Please make sure that your contact details are kept up to date so that we do not miss communication relating to when trading will commence and how. Should you have any questions or will require further clarification regarding the conclusion of the lock-in period, please do not hesitate to contact our investor relations team at our contact center. I will now hand over to Ms. Pateti Matibe, who will present the business update and financial performance for 2023. I will return later to cover the rest of the AGM proceedings. Thank you.
Once again, a very good morning to all our shareholders joining us this morning, and welcome to you all. My name is Pateti Matibe. I'll be covering the business and the financial update. Starting off with a business update, South African trading environment presented several challenges in 2023, which also affected entities in the commercial property space. We experienced low economic growth. The economy remains sluggish, increased by the global uncertainty stemming from the conflict in Russia and in the Middle East, and the global inflation drag. However, with the establishment of the government of national unity and the potential rent improvement, we are looking positive for the South African growth improvement. We also experienced high inflation, which continues to pose significant challenges, as well as high interest rates, which makes difficult for access to liquidity. We also experienced high load shedding in 2023, which impacted on our tenants' profit margins. But however, we welcome improvement in our operating environment, notably on the 8th of July, marked 100 days without load shedding. The Eskom generation capacity is increasing, and the private sector solar installation have, to some extent, decreased grid demand. Despite all these challenges, Khula Sizwe remain committed to navigating this complex landscape with strategic initiative and resilience. Looking at our property portfolio and its performance, December 2023, we managed to transfer the last properties, totaling to a total of 64 properties in line with the initial transaction. That translated in an increase in our gross lettable area by 4,000 square meters. However, if you look at our occupancy, that has reduced by slightly from 95% to 94%. And if you look at our gross value of property has increased from 3.1 billion to 3.2 billion. And our net debt has decreased from 2.1 billion to 2 billion. That translated to a lower loan to value, which has decreased from 67% to 63%. Our tenant profile remained very strong. As we all are aware that at the initial stage of our transaction, we only had Barloworld Limited and its division as our tenant. However, with the changes that happened in Barloworld business, that has brought diversity in our tenancy, which is a positive outcome for sustainability of our business. Outside the tenant profile, we also have a diverse footprint across South Africa, with the main business hub being Gauteng and the Western Cape. And if you look at the sector, we still dominate on the retail space by value and by the sector, mainly from 47% and as well as 48%. In 2023, Khula Sizwe started its journey towards the sustainable growth and the community development. Khula Sizwe initiated its flagship initiative called Sikhule Khaya Landlord Program. And Sikhule Khaya Landlord Program has 3 core objectives, which is assisting landlord with compliance, which means that we were looking at the compliance of the landlords, making sure that they comply with the municipal regulation. And secondly, we were assisting the landlord in formalizing their business operation. This included minor refurbishment of their properties to make sure that they are of a livable standard. And lastly, we assisted the landlord in access to sustainable business alternative. We focused on giving them soft skills in terms of how to run sustainable businesses. And looking at the performance, our revenue continues to grow year on year. This is mainly driven by the 8% escalation that is included on our leases. This has resulted in a positive increase on our operating profit. Our operating profit remains solid and steady. Just covering the value creation on our gross asset, it has increased year on year. If you look at the 2020 to 2021, there is a bit of a spike there. This is mainly because of the 5% discount that Barloworld was granted to Khula Sizwe at the time of a sale. However, if you look at 2022 to 2023, we increased from 3.1 billion to 3.2 billion. Our net debt also, if you look at the beginning, it started very low. It started increasing mainly because we were at a stage where we were still acquiring our properties. But when we started continuing to pay the debt, then it started to move down. And then that translated into a loan to value, which also continued to decrease. Now, net asset value also started to increase from 2020 all the way to 2023. This is mainly driven by two items, which is the valuation of our properties and as well as when we continue to pay the debt. Just looking at the income statement, our revenue has increased by 7%. What is included in that line is our rental income, as well as the property recoveries, which is in line with the lease model that we have. And we're pleased to also indicate that there was a new line that was introduced, the tower leasing income, that's included in that revenue line. Outside that, if you look at the property-related expense, that has increased by 23%. This is mainly because of the utility cost that has increased. We saw a high increase on electricity and water. Outside that, if you look at our operating expenses, that has increased in line with the operating structure. Our finance income has increased significantly by 59%. This is mainly because of the cash resources that we started the year with, which was later utilized on several projects. I'm pleased to announce that we have the dividends in our income statement for the first time. This is mainly because of our shareholding in Barloworld. We managed to receive about a cash dividends of 4 million, as well as the 7 million in Zeda shares. This is in line with the unbundling of the Zeda business from Barloworld. However, if you look at the bottom of our income statement, our revaluation of our investment property has slightly come down by 32% from last year. This is mainly because we're reaching the midterm of our lease. We managed to get a revaluation surplus of 66 million. However, on the negative side, we had Barloworld share price reducing that hit our income statement by 4 million. That translated into a profit before tax of 286 million. And when you take the tax into account, we landed on a good steady profit after tax of 240 million. Just touching on our statement of financial position, Khula Sizwe remains strong. Our investment property has increased from 3.1 to 3.2 billion. And if you look at the investment in shares, as I've already indicated that we had a decrease on Barloworld share price. But however, if you look at that line, there is an increase from 46 to 49 million. This is mainly, it was offset by the 7 million that coming from the Zeda shares. Outside that, then we've got the lease smoothing, which still continue to increase from 255 to 315. This is mainly, it's a timing because we're still at the early stage of our leases. We will start to narrow down as we go into the mid-term of our lease. Outside that, if you look at our interest-bearing borrowings, that continues to reduce as we continue to pay our obligations. And that translates into a net asset value of 1.5 billion. And if you look at it with per share, that translates, it has increased from 23.9 rand to 27.9 rand. On the last statement, which is the cash flow statement, our cash position still remains very strong. Our tenants are honoring their obligations. However, if you look at on a cash flow, the one item that still remains large is the interest payments, which is our commitment to Nedbank, which we paid about 193 million. Outside that, there is investment that we did. It's reflected by the cash outflow of 34 million. Out of that 34 million, we paid about 20 million relating to the last property that, as I indicated, that we had last property transferring in December 2022. Outside that, then there's a 14 million which we invested in the solar. And that landed us in a comfortable cash position of 146 million. In conclusion, I would like to indicate that Khula Sizwe still remains strong despite the challenges that we faced in 2023. We have achieved commendable set of results. And I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the Khula Sizwe board, whose guidance and saw us through the 2023. A special thank you to the Khula Sizwe team for their unwavering support and their expertise. Additionally, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to our tenant for the contribution to a positive and successful year. We look forward to continuing this journey together, and I trust that you will remain with us beyond the current lease term. I thank you all, and I'll hand over to the Deputy Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Bateti. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to ask for those who have not voted yet to please cast their votes as I read out the resolutions. After this, we will open the session for Q&A. Please kindly post your questions in the Q&A tab. Thank you. Ordinary resolution number 1. Ordinary resolution number 1, adoption of the audited consolidated annual financial statements for the year ended 30 September 2023. Ordinary resolution number 2, election of Thanda Swafugu as a non-executive director of the company. Ordinary resolution number 3, the election of Khula Sizwe Property as a non-executive director of the company. Ordinary resolution 4, re-election of Adila Cohen as a member and the chair of the audit committee. Ordinary resolution 5, re-election of Judith February as a member of the audit committee. Ordinary resolution number 6, election of Khula Sizwe Property as a member of the audit committee. Ordinary resolution number 7, reappointment of S&G Grant Thornton Inc. as external auditors. And special resolution number 1, the approval of the non-executive director's fees as detailed in the notice. As you cast your votes, we will open this session to Q&A. I'm not sure if you've got any questions online.
Not yet, Chair.
So we will give you about 5 minutes to cast your votes as well as to raise up questions in the Q&A chat. Thanks.
While we wait for everybody to cast their question on the open Q&A link online, we have received questions before this AGM. We have grouped them into 4 categories. I will read them. Some of them will already have been answered by both the chair and the MD, Ms. Bateti. I'll start with the first one, which relates just to the administration of your shares. Briefly, we have received review queries from shareholders in respect of your login details, details relating to your shareholding, updating of your details, personal details, in order to know what your shareholding is, as well as your shares of deceased shareholders. Shareholders reminded that Khula Sizwe has appointed JSE Investor Relations as the share administrators and share registrar. The information is also available on the notice that went out to shareholders as well as on the Khula Sizwe website. We ask shareholders to kindly contact JSE Investor Services on telephone number 0800 233 733. I'll repeat that, 0800 233 733, and on email khulasizwe@jseinvestorservices.coza. If you did not catch that, kindly be aware that this information again is available on the Khula Sizwe website, as well as the notice of AGM that went out to all shareholders. This includes shareholders who were former employees of Barloworld and have met the conditions to retain their shares awarded to them. Kindly also contact the JSE Investor Services. It is important to get the information up to date in light of the upcoming liquidity event. So please make sure that all your information is correct and up to date. Khula Sizwe has also engaged with JSE Investor Relations to ensure that the resources allocated to the call center and to the email line are adequately resourced in order to meet the demands of questions that will be coming through. The next question relates to the value of the share. Bateti just currently went through it when she touched on it. Just to remind shareholders that in 2029, the Khula Sizwe share was valued at 10, as it stands now at the end of September 2023 at 27.70. In respect of the question relating to when will shareholders receive their dividends, I think again this was touched by the chair. Income earned by Khula Sizwe Property during the 5-year lock-in period, which ends now at 30 September 2024, will be used firstly to pay and provide for permitted operational costs, expenses including interest on the external loan and tax liabilities. Any balance of such income earned on the properties held by Khula Sizwe will then be used to settle capital outstanding on the third-party funding. During the empowerment period ending starting 1st of October 2019 to 30 September 2023, any excess cash will be required will be used to acquire Barloworld shares. As soon as possible after receiving payment of any Barloworld dividend and after the end of the lock-in period, the company may declare or pay a dividend on the ordinary shares, subject to the company satisfying some of the regulatory obligations. This will be determined again by the board, having had due consideration of availability of liquidity and cash in the company. What will happen to our shares after the termination of the 5-year lock-in period as at 30 September 2024? This was touched by the chair at the beginning of the meeting. Due to the current market conditions as indicated by the chair at the beginning of the meeting, the board has taken the difficult decision not to list at this juncture. The listing of the company will result in not creating the anticipated value for shareholders. The most suitable option, however, is currently being considered and explored by the board, and as soon as that has been decided and determined, an announcement, the board will make an announcement to its shareholders. I will just pause there just to determine whether there has been any further questions. There's been no further questions. With that, I will invite the chair back onto the podium.
Thank you, Irato. So we'll just go through the voting now. I think this technology doesn't like me. I think it's me that it doesn't like. Ordinary Resolution 1, adoption of the audited consolidated annual financial statements for the year ended 30 September 2023 has passed with the requisite percentage. Ordinary Resolution number 2, the election of Thandaswa as non-executive director of the company has passed Ordinary resolution number 3, election of Khula Sizwe Property as a non-executive director of the company has passed. Ordinary resolution 4, re-election of Adila Cohen as a member and chair of the audit committee has passed. Ordinary resolution 5, re-election of Judith February as a member of the audit committee has passed. Ordinary resolution 5, re-elect 26, election of Khula Sizwe as a member of the audit committee has passed. Ordinary resolution 7, the reappointment of SNG Grant Thornton as a member of the audit committee has passed. Special resolution 1, the approval of the non-executive director's fees as detailed in the notice has passed. We have received questions, so we will deal with the questions before we go to the closure.
The first question, Chair, if I may, relates to the nomination of board members in terms of the selection of board members in terms of how is that being conducted? How is that conducted at Khula Sizwe?
Election of board members, there's a general governance process that Khula Sizwe goes through. So where there is a need to elect a board member, Khula Sizwe does a short list of who are the relevant people and people who have the requisite skills. The people are interviewed, and those who come through then get to be elected as board members. And as we have done now, we bring them back to the AGM for the AGM to elect them as well. Another question?
The other question is just relating to the timeframes for the presentation of the AGM as well as the results in terms of why are we holding them so late as opposed to closer to the end of the financial year. That question was actually covered by you, Chair, in relation of outlining the process that was underway in terms of identifying audit members for the company, which is a Company Act obligation that Khula Sizwe has. If I may pass that.
And can I just close on that, Director? I also want to say to the shareholders, even though it's later than usual, we're still within the Companies Act period. So there's nothing that we've breached in terms of governance.
The other question relates to the voting, Chair, as an administrative. Just to remind members, they were issued in terms of when we circulated the notice, we're issued with a link that had on as part of it a link to the shareholding platform, and in the shareholding platform there was a voting tab to enable members to vote in for the resolutions tabled here. We have those members who have we've been able to follow the link. We have received your voting, and we have collated. The members who were able to cast their vote during this meeting, we've also received those. The members who have not been able to cast, kindly again reminded to go through your link, as we will be closing the link very soon post this Q&A session.
Thank you, Ms. Managa. So just to emphasize shareholders, those of you who have not voted yet, there's still time for you to vote. You can cast your votes on the link, using the link that was sent with the notice of the meeting. So yeah, we'll do that.
One of the shareholders is asking whether the presentation can be shared with them post the meeting. I will direct that question to the MP, Bateti.
Thank you very much for that question. The presentation and the procedure, the recording of this meeting will be posted on the website after this AGM.
In relation, Bateti, kindly before you step off, we do have another question relating to the finance. Whether the cash on hand cannot be used to settle the debt. I think you also touched in your presentation.
We will be doing a cash assessment with excess cash as indicated on our funding documents. It's utilized to either to pay debt or to buy valuable shares. So after after the year end, we do make assessment on that, and then we direct the cash with the best utilization of it, either through purchasing of shares in valuable or paying down the debt.
And Chair, just again, you touched on it, and I also touched on it in relation to the shares, what happens to the shares when the vesting takes place. I'll read the question. What will now happen going forward as the vesting period was supposed to be in September regarding our shares and getting returns on them?
Thank you very much for that question. I think it's very apt. Firstly, end of September, the shares will vest in the shareholders who hold them, right? The only distinction or move away from that is you will not be able to trade on the shares until the board has taken the decision on how to take this further and how to create a liquidity event. If I may also just explain further, the board has looked at the listing and what could possibly transpire. The board, with the advice of our external advisors, have come to the conclusion that at this point in time, it is not a great strategy to list Khula Sizwe, because right now we are trading, or we will be trading at a discount if we do list, and that leads to shareholder value erosion. As a board, we didn't want to be responsible for the shareholder value erosion. That's why we said earlier, by the second quarter of this new financial year, the board will have decided on the best possible route of dealing with the trading that we want to do, and that will be communicated extensively to the shareholders. And that's also the reason why we're asking you guys to update your details, such that whenever there's information that needs to be shared, you are able to get the information. Thank you.
Chair, we've gone through most questions. Most of them relate to matters that have been touched in respect to the lock-in. What happens to shares post the termination of the lock-in period on the 30th. The other ones we've also touched in relate to the dividend, where the members will be receiving and when can they expect dividend. I think those have been touched on. The other questions, and I'm grouping them so that members do understand that the questions they are asking has already been covered by others. And the other one relates to in terms of the administration of the shares, updating their information. And again, just members, in respect of your voting, you are reminded that the link that was issued to shareholders advising of the AGM notice provided a link as well to your shareholder platform on the JSI Investor Services. On that JSI Investor Services, when you log in using your KS number, and your login detail, you would have been able to view the votings and the resolutions coming up for voting in order to enable you to vote. We thank members who were able to follow and pass through their votes. In respect of all the other questions that we're unable to get through currently, kindly note that we do have members on standby who will be during the course of today and during the coming weeks be going through the Q&A that have been posed by members, by shareholders, and will endeavor to ensure that each and every shareholder question has been dealt with.
Thank you. Thanks, Ms. Manaka. I'd like to deal with the change of directorate and then close afterwards. Andile Mabizela has elected not to make himself available and retires by rotation at this meeting due to increased demand from his business. I'd like to express our gratitude to Andile for the valuable contribution during his tenure on the board and wish him well in their future endeavors. With that, I'd like to thank the shareholders for their participation and bring the meeting to a close. The results of the voting will be posted on the Khula Sizwe website following this AGM so that everyone can see how they, how we voted and what were the results thereof. I guess this is it, and I can only say thank you very much for attending. We had a record attendance, and thank you for showing interest in Khula Sizwe. We shall see each other next year. Thank you.